What happens when one of Hollywood's most iconic action stars walks into a daytime talk show expecting a warm welcome, only to walk out in fury? Today, we're breaking down the explosive clash that ended with Arnold Schwarzenegger being kicked off The View after a brutal verbal brawl with Joy Behar that stunned the studio into total silence. This wasn't a tense exchange. This was war. But before we dive into this unprecedented meltdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. What do you think about celebrity interviews that spiral out of control? The morning at The View began like any other. Arnold arrived early, every bit the legend, impeccably dressed, shaking hands, promoting his new memoir. The atmosphere, calm, polished, professional, until it wasn't. Backstage, Joy Behar was reviewing her notes with laser focus. Everyone on staff knew she'd been gearing up for this one. Her long-standing criticism of Arnold's political career was no secret. And today, she wasn't holding back. On camera, things seemed smooth at first. Whoopi Goldberg welcomed him warmly. The crowd erupted in applause. Arnold smiled, waved, and took his seat. "Thank you, Whoopi. Always a pleasure to be here," he said, his signature Austrian accent drawing laughs and cheers. Sonny Hostin started the interview on a positive note, asking about the memoir. Arnold spoke about overcoming obstacles, discipline, and vision, classic Schwarzenegger themes. Even Sarah Haynes chimed in, curious about his toughest challenges. "Honestly, my biggest obstacle was always myself," Arnold said. "Learning to get out of my own way." But one host hadn't said a word. Joy Behar sat quietly, eyes narrow, pen tapping. Something was coming and everyone felt it. Then it dropped. As Whoopi asked Arnold about his proudest accomplishments, Joy suddenly cut in. "Arnold, let's talk about your real legacy," she said, ice in her tone. "You left California in worse shape than you found it. How do you justify writing a book about success when your political career was such a spectacular failure?" The room went still. Arnold's smile faded, but he kept his cool. "Joy, I think you might want to check your facts," he said calmly. "We faced historic economic challenges, but we also reformed workers' comp and led the way on environmental policy." The Joy wasn't done. She snapped open her folder of stats like a weapon. "Unemployment went from 7.4% to 12.5% under your watch. These aren't opinions, Arnold. These are numbers." Arnold's jaw tightened. "You're taking those numbers out of context. We were dealing with a global financial crisis." But Joy cut him off again. "Environmental protection. This from the man who drove Hummers and lived in a mansion with the carbon footprint of a small country. Don't you think that's just a little hypocritical?" Arnold's accent thickened as his patience thinned. "You know what, Joy? I came here to talk about my book, but clearly you're more interested in making this a spectacle." Joy leaned in, eyes glinting. "What I don't understand is how someone can fail that badly at their job and then try to teach others how to succeed. That's like taking marriage advice from someone who's been divorced 3 times. A gasps. The dig was personal, and Arnold knew it. His voice dropped to a growl. "That's enough. You want to attack my policies, fine. But you cross the line when you bring up my family and personal life." Joy smirked. "I'm not attacking your family. I'm pointing out that people who can't manage their own homes shouldn't be giving life advice. It's called accountability." The room was dead silent. The tension, suffocating. Arnold slowly stood, towering unshaken. "You know what your problem is, Joy. You sit behind this desk throwing stones. But you've never been in the arena. It's easy to criticize when you've never had to lead, never had to make the hard calls." Joy snapped back instantly. "Oh, spare me the arena speech. You were a movie star who bought your way into politics with celebrity and catchphrases. And when things got hard, you flopped." Arnold's composure cracked. "At least I tried to make a difference. What have you built, Joy? What's your legacy besides cheap shots and smug commentary?" Joy flushed with fury. "My legacy is calling out frauds like you. people who think they're heroes just because they played one on screen. Arnold let out a cold laugh, no humor in it. Then, without another word, he turned, walked off stage, and left the studio in stunned silence. Arnold honest. You call blindsiding a guest with personal attacks honest journalism. This isn't journalism, Joy. This is tabloid trash in a talk show costume. Joy is snapping, don't you dare lecture me about journalism. You muscle-bound has been. I was asking real questions when you were still learning how to read off a teleprompter. Just because you can't handle being challenged doesn't mean I'm gonna hand you softballs. Arnold's eyes narrowed, his patience fraying. Arnold has been. Let me make something clear. I've accomplished more in my worst year than you have in your entire career. I've built businesses. I've inspired millions. I've led. What have you done, besides sit in that chair and tear people down? Joy stood, trying to meet his towering presence, though still dwarfed Joy. You want to know what I've done? I've held people like you accountable. I've pulled the curtain back so the public sees through the PR spin. Behind the muscles and the movie star grin, you're just another politician who promised the world and delivered nothing. Arnold's fists clenched at his sides. For a second, the tension felt like it might snap into something physical. Security shifted in their seats. Arnold, low and calm. You know what, Joy? I think we're done here. I came for a real conversation about my book. Instead, I walked into an ambush. You're not interested in dialogue. You want spectacle. Joy's a mocking. Oh, now you're the victim. Poor Arnold can't take a little heat. Is that how you handled criticism when you were governor? By walking away? Arnold turned back slowly. His stare was ice-cold steel. Arnold, I've never run from anything in my life, but I don't waste time arguing with people more interested in scoring points than solving problems. Joy smirking, and you failed spectacularly at it. I might not have muscles, Arnold, but at least I'm good at what I do. You couldn't even succeed as a politician in California, a state where movie stars practically get elected by default. Face it, you're a failed governor trying to rewrite history. That was it. Arnold's voice dropped into a whisper, dangerous in its calm. Arnold, I've met bullies before. But I've never met anyone so bitter and angry they can't have a civil conversation on their own show. That's not strength, Joy. That's weakness. Joy went pale with fury. Joy, through gritted teeth, get out. Get out of my studio now. I don't have to listen to a washed-up action star tell me how to do my job. Security, escort Mr. Schwarzenegger out. The set erupted into chaos. Co-host shouted. Audience members gasped. Security moved in. Arnold adjusted his tie and stood tall, flashing his signature smile, minus the warmth. Arnold, don't worry, Joy. I wouldn't want to stay where I'm not welcome. But before I go, let me leave you with this. You can question my record. You can doubt my motives. But I'll go home knowing I tried to make a difference. You'll go home knowing you spent your day trying to tear someone down. He turned to leave, and the studio audience exploded. Not polite applause. Thunderous. People stood, cheering, clapping. Even some of the crew joined in. Joy flushed a deeper red, realizing the crowd had sided with him. Joy furious. Sit down! This isn't about picking sides. This is about accountability! Arnold stopped mid-exit. The ovation fed something inside him. Slowly, he turned back. Arnold's calm. You know what, Joy? I think I will stay. These people came for a show, and it looks like they're getting one. Whoopee desperate. Okay, Arnold. Joy, can we all just breathe? Let's bring this back to the book. Arnold, no, Whoopee. Joy clearly has more to say, and I think the audience deserves to hear both sides. Joy clenched her jaw, realizing her power move had backfired. Joy, fine. If you want to embarrass yourself further, be my guest. But don't expect me to go easy on you, just because you're throwing a tantrum. Arnold, chuckling, tantrum. Joy, I'm the calmest person in this room. You're the one yelling and calling for security. If anyone's melting down, it's you. Even Sarah Haynes cracked a smile. Joy noticed, glared, then pivoted. Joy, let's talk about your movie career. Then you made millions playing violent heroes, and now you expect people to take you seriously as a politician and author. There's a massive disconnect. Arnold leaned back in his seat, now fully in control. Arnold, Joy, you're confusing fiction with reality. Yes, I played action heroes. But what did those characters stand for? They fought for what's right. They protected the innocent. They never gave up. Those are values worth standing by. And I'd rather be known for that than for tearing people apart on live television. Joy's mocking. Your movies weren't about honor or justice. They were about shooting first and thinking later. Solving complex problems with simple violence. That's not leadership, Arnold. That's just mindless action. Arnold smirking. Sounds like you've watched a lot of my movies, Joy. Maybe too many. But most of those characters didn't destroy the world. They tried to save it. The Terminator protected Sarah Connor. Conan fought tyranny. Dutch was trying to save his team. They weren't mindless killers. They were heroes. Joy's flat heroes. They were walking clichés with guns. And somehow that qualifies you to run the fifth largest economy in the world. Do you even hear how ridiculous that sounds? Arnold leaning in. What's ridiculous is someone who spent their career tearing down others, criticizing people who actually built something. You want to talk qualifications? Did you go to journalism school? Ever run for office? Ever build a business? Or do you just sit here judging? The question hit home. Joy stiffened. Joy defensive. I don't have to run for office to know when someone's failing at the job. I don't need to build a company to spot a bad decision. That's what critics do. We hold power accountable. Arnold coolly, no. Real critics offer solutions. They aim to improve things. All I've heard from you is bitterness, sarcasm, so in character attacks. So where are your solutions, Joy? Where are your ideas? Joy, flustered, my job isn't to solve the problems. My job is to make sure the people in charge don't keep getting away with screwing things up. Arnold, a voice rising. No. Your job is to ask tough questions, not throw mud and hope some of it sticks. You didn't ask about policy. You didn't ask why I made certain decisions. You're not looking for truth. You're looking for a headline. The co-hosts tried to intervene. Whoopi, Sunny, Sarah, but Arnold and Joy were locked in. Sunny, gently, Arnold, maybe we can talk about the book. What's the core message you want people to take from it? Joy cut him before he could answer. Joy, acidic. I'll tell you what the message is. That if you're rich and famous enough, you can fail upwards and still convince the world you're a success. Arnold stared at her. Calm but boiling. Arnold, you know what, Joy? That sounds a lot like projection. I worked for everything I have. I didn't inherit it. I didn't marry into it. I didn't ride anyone's coattails. I built it from the ground up. Joy, snap-in, worked for it. You were a bodybuilder who got lucky. You rode your muscles to movie stardom, then used that fame to walk into politics. That's not work. That's just timing. Arnold stood, slow and steady. The audience held its breath. Arnold, firm. Do you have any idea what it takes to become Mr. Olympia 7 times? To learn English from scratch and become a global box office star? To win a statewide election in California against career politicians? That wasn't luck. That was years, decades, of hard work. Joy stood too, fire in her eyes. Joy, and what did you do with all that work? You left California a mess. You broke promises. You proved fame doesn't equal competence. Arnoldy, and yet I tried. I stepped up. I got in the game, you. You sit in this chair every day throwing rocks at people who actually try. That's easy. Real courage is putting yourself on the line. The crowd was alive now. Some shouting encouragement for Arnold, others calling for Joy to stop. The tension in the room was a live wire. Joy venomous. You know what? You're right. I do criticize people. Because people like you need to be criticized. You coast on fame, charm, and a movie star smile, and no one holds you accountable. Well, I just did. Arnold's cut in, and I'm holding you accountable, Joy, for being a bitter, angry person who contributes nothing but noise. You don't build. You don't fix. You don't help. You just tear down. And the saddest part, beat you seem to enjoy it. Narrator Savio, and with that the studio hit a fever pitch. Joy's face flushed with rage. Arnold stood tall, like the action hero he once played, unshaken, unmoved. The co-hosts had stopped trying to intervene. They were just watching. Two titans. One stage. No script. Joy spitting. You want to talk about enjoying things. You loved being governor until the real work started. You loved the attention, the headlines, the power. But the job, the actual governing, you bailed, that's why you failed. Arnold let out a cold, humorless laugh. Arnold final, no Joy. I didn't fail. I tried. You never even got off the sidelines. Arnold's steady pointed failed. Joy. I walked into a $400 billion deficit and balanced the budget. I reformed a broken workers' comp system that was chasing jobs out of California. I invested in infrastructure and turned us into a national leader in clean energy. If that's your definition of failure, I'd hate to see what you call success. Joy voice cracking slightly. Success isn't leaving your state with higher unemployment than when you took office. Success isn't borrowing money just to keep the lights on. And it sure as hell isn't being abandoned by your own party. That's not leadership. That's rejection. Something in Arnold's demeanor shifted. He leaned forward, his voice a cold whisper that cut deeper than shouting ever could. Arnold, you know what, Joy? I think we finally hit the truth. This isn't about my record. It's about you. You're not angry about policy. You're angry about your own irrelevance. While I was out trying to change things, you were stuck behind this desk, throwing stones at people who did things. Joy's face flushed. Her eyes burned. Joy's snapping irrelevant. I've been on television longer than you've been in politics. I've interviewed presidents, Nobel winners, heads of state. Don't you dare call me irrelevant. Arnold's relentless, and what did you do with that access? What lives did you change? What problems did you solve? All that power. And all you've done is build a brand around being hostile and divisive. You're not respected. You're feared. There's a difference. The accusation hit Joy like a slap. She nearly gasped. Joy's fuming. How dare you question my career? I've informed the public. I've held politicians accountable. I've given a voice to people who would have gone unheard. Arnold's calm, Cutting's no. You haven't given anyone a voice. You've just turned up the volume on your own. You don't inform. You inflame. You don't hold power accountable. You attack it, and you don't elevate journalism. You make it look like a blood sport. The audience was silent, frozen. Even the co-host sat in stunned stillness. Joy seething. You think I have to sit here and take this? From a movie star who pretended to lead. Security, get him out of here. Now, Arnold didn't flinch. Arnold, there it is. The fallback move. Call security when the truth gets uncomfortable. When you can't win the argument, just try to silence it. Is that your version of accountability? Joy turned to the guards, her voice shrill now. Joy, I said get him out! This interview is over! Arnold turned to the guards. Then back to Joy. His voice was quiet. Final. Arnold, I'll leave. Not because you're throwing me out, but because I've said what I needed to say. And the audience, they've seen who you really are. He started to walk away, then stopped. Look back one last time. Arnold, softly, you know what the real tragedy is, Joy. You could have been great. You have a sharp mind, a powerful voice, a massive platform. But instead of using those gifts to build something better, you use them to tear people down. And that's something you will have to live with. Joy was shaking now, not from fear, but from fury. Joy through clenched teeth. Don't you dare pity me. Don't stand there and act like you're some moral giant. You're a failed politician pushing a book no one asked for. I'm a broadcaster with a decades-long career. We are not the same. Arnold turned, gave that famous grin, sharp, unsmiling. Arnold, you're right, Joy. We're not the same. And thank God for that. And with that, Arnold Schwarzenegger walked off the set of The View, leaving behind chaos, silence, and a host utterly dismantled on her own turf. The camera stayed rolling. Joy sat rigid, eyes locked on nothing, her face a mask of rage and embarrassment. The other hosts tried to move on. Whoopi reached for a commercial. Sarah tried to speak, but the damage was done. She got the confrontation she wanted, but what she didn't expect was to lose. Utterly, the audience murmured. Some clapped, many whispered. But the moment was seared in history. Arnold may have been kicked off The View, but he had just delivered one of the most devastating takedowns in daytime television history.